Hello and welcome to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're glad that you could join us today where we will be talking about Peacemaker. I'm joined as always by the one and only Mark Sandlin. How you doing today, Mark?
Doing pretty well. Excited about this as always. It should be a good one.
It should be a good one, and if you haven't seen it, you should know that there are some spoilers, and we can't spoil too much because we're only one episode into Peacemaker, but we will spoil that one for you. And if you haven't seen the first season, we might make some references to that as well. I need to let you know that we are brought to you, as always, by the Center for Progressive Christianity, a wonderful place to get all your progressive Christian resource needs, by the Christian Left, a nationwide ministry and community for progressive Christians and allies, and by the Progressive Christian Alliance, a movement and denomination that rallies around the principles of justice, respect, and inclusion. And Mark, maybe we should also tell them that this is like a special week, man, because and I'm sure we'll talk about this later in the show too, but like if you're watching right now, we just need to let you know that you get like 2 episodes of Moonshine Jesus this week, right?
Isn't that the best?
It's the best. Yeah,
we get to do it twice. Wild Gooses this week. We'll be telling you more about that at the end of it, but we get to see each other in person live and do another show this week.
Yeah, so if you're going to be at Wild Goose, make sure that you stop by the Goosecast stage at 5 o'clock on Friday evening. So before that, we need to get to talking about Peacemaker. And before we can even do that, we need a drink. Do you have a drink, Mark?
I do. I actually found one. One of my favorite bitters company is a company called Bitter Milk, but they also make flavors and tinctures to make drinks with. And they had a drink called Peacemaker. And it's their, I'll give them some free advertising. It's their number one bitter milk, which is an old fashioned flavors and spices and stuff, and some Campari and some bourbon, of course. So it comes out a little red, like part of his uniform. So the Peacemaker. How about you? What'd you decide to go with?
So I found a different drink that is also called Peacemaker and also not affiliated with the show in any way. It's just, I think, supposed to make you feel at peace when you drink it. And it is just bourbon and mezcal and some bitters. And
that sounds delicious.
Kind of looks like regular bourbon. So cheers to your Peacemaker. Mark,
cheers.
May we make some peace, find some peace as we drink these away.
The world can use it.
And so
Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus. Moonshine Jesus, won't you shine?
Welcome to our Geek Out segment. We're going to spend just a little bit of time kind of geeking out about the show, letting our geek flags fly, but we're going to try to shift pretty quickly over to our next segment about theology and politics that we find in the show. So if you're not familiar with Peacemaker, he is a kind of a self-made superhero who has moved into a stage of his life that he just wants to make peace, and he doesn't care how many men, women, and children he has to kill to get there. And he's got all kinds of struggles, including the fact that his horrible, overbearing father forced him into a fight with his younger brother at a young age, and he ended up accidentally killing his brother and has been living with the repercussions of that his entire life. And we see him trying to figure out how to restore himself, become a better person, and he keeps having struggles. And he is not well liked by the other superheroes at this moment either. So it just makes for a lot of interesting and sometimes dark comedy. I really have enjoyed this show. James Gunn, who is now one half of the leadership of the DC universe, says that it is his favorite, that he absolutely loves not only the hero, but making Peacemaker. So it's a lot of fun. Listen, the burning question that we absolutely have to ask, we got to even start with, is what was your reaction to the Oh Lord opening dance? How did it compare with the first season's dance sequence, which blew up the internet when it came out? What'd you think? Did they match it? Or Were they already set up to? I don't know. What do you think?
I thought the choreography was great. I don't think the song was quite as catchy, quite as fun to
Yeah.
listen to the second time around. But it still was fun, and I was that was one of my favorite parts, of course, of the first season. I don't think I ever skipped the intro. In fact, I've
One of
gone
the
back.
rare times.
I know. I went back and watched the entire first season because as I was watching this, I was like, "Oh yeah, this is a lot of fun. I need to go back and watch everything." And
Yeah.
so, still, the second time around, I never skipped any of the intros. So this one's still a lot of fun. The choreography's fun. I think
Yeah.
it'll fit the theme of the season, but it wasn't quite as catchy. Wasn't quite as fun as the first one.
Yeah.
So I would put it a little bit lower than the first season. What do you think?
I think they were set up for failure. I mean,
Yeah.
no one was anticipating, wondering about, thinking that the
Yeah.
opening sequence of Peacemaker would be anything other than just a regular kind of superhero opening, right? And they
Yeah.
came out with that, and you almost fell over laughing on the first episode out of the surprise. You were already expecting that this time around, you know?
Yeah.
I agree about the song. This was from one of Gunn's favorite bands, and it's not a band that a lot of us are as familiar with. So, and it's a little more contemporary kind of band than what the last season was. I'm curious to see, because if you go back and watch the opening sequence of season 1, it sort of has a lot of telltale Easter eggs of what the story is going to be. And I understand that that's true of this one as well. There were a couple moments where you knew that's what was going on, but there were other times where my head was just kind of spinning to try to figure out, well, what symbolically could that be about? What symbolically could that be about? So it'll be fun to go back once we have the full story and seeing what it's about. But yeah, I'm kind of with you. It just wasn't as good. It was fine. And it was a little bit funny. And the dancing, the choreography was interesting. That's one of the things. It's such a goofy choreo in terms of the arms up and down.
Yeah.
It's really goofy and intentionally so. And so it'll be fun to see, I guess.
I mean, I guess I was like, I guess whenever I heard it, I'm like, I want to taste it again. Anyway.
Yeah, that's fair. That's fair.
Yeah.
All right. Well, listen, next question I have for you. What did you think of Chris, the Peacemaker character, discovering an alternative reality where his father is actually loving and his brother is alive?
I liked it, man, because I think this is going to set up the contrast of something I think we're already seeing in James Gunn's DCU, which is like this argument of how you're nurtured versus other things. And so, like, we see this in Superman, right? Because we see his Kryptonian parents actually sending him on this quest to destroy Earth, and his human parents raising him to be a good person.
Right.
And here in Peacemaker, we've got his dad, who's just this terrible Nazi figure who raised him, and he's trying to like get over all of that, versus what his life could have been like if he had a loving parent and his family could have been like. So I think it's kind of a fun way to enter the multiverse in a way that we haven't really explored very much, or it's a different kind of approach than we've seen in the MCU. And so I kind of liked it. I also I liked getting his dad back, seeing the T-1000 in this. I liked it. What did you think about the approach?
I liked it too, although I will say it felt a little bit like Marvel's, like it was a Marvel What If episode. What if his dad wasn't really mean and his brother didn't really die? And so it felt a slightly derivative because of that. I do like the setup that it gives us, though. I like that it means that we get this maybe redemptive arc in his storyline, where he'll get to experience how things could have been different and see that he's a different person in that world, and recognizing that so much of what his father put on him really was his father's fault and not his own fault. So
Yeah.
I'm excited to see how they play that out. And with him killing himself in the folding universe, the whatever they call the middle space, I think that's going to, obviously push that even further. So I don't know. I think it stands to be pretty interesting.
He's gonna mess it up, man. I mean, he already has. He's
Oh, of
already
course
killed his
Killed
other
his-
self. So I
his other
think that's
self,
exactly
right?
what we're gonna see. It's just like everything
Oh
else.
yeah. Well,
He's
and
gonna mess it up.
then you've got the girl that he's so interested in, hardcore.
Hardcore, yeah.
Yeah, who in his real world is saying, well, we hooked up a little bit, but that was a mistake. We shouldn't have done that. And in this new world, his brothers already said, oh yeah, you let that one get away. I think you should go back and try to make that work.
Yeah,
And
she
in the
still
dance
loves you, man.
sequence, we see that it's her.
Yeah,
Because
Bend around,
the
never
girl
touch.
in the one in his universe hardcore gets pulled away from him.
Yep.
And as that happens, his dad, brother, and their world's version of hardcore dances in. So it's going to be interesting to see. I think he'll mess that up too. I think he's going to mess that. He's going to try to make that work, and it's probably not going to work very well. Because he is Peacemaker, and he's not very good at making peace with anything.
No,
which is one of the great things about his character. As much as he in his head thinks he wants to create peace, he is really actually pretty bad at making peace. He actually constantly is inviting conflict and turmoil into all those relationships. So
yes,
yeah, we'll have to see how it goes, I think. So what's your take on the way that James Gunn retconned the end, the DCEU, when he replaced the Justice League with the Justice Gang? Because we ended one season with the Justice League, and then he retcons and refilms and even dubs new dialogue for the Justice Gang in this one. What were your thoughts on it? Did it work for you? Did it not work for you? What do you think it means? I'm very curious.
Yeah, so I think this was everyone's big question, right? Was how on earth we're going to make this compatible with the DCU when we've got the Justice League at the end? And I'm sure that was a moment where James Gunn was wishing he hadn't done that. So,
right.
But I thought in the lead up to this, James Gunn was talking about this, and people were asking him, and he's like, "Well, most everything's going to be canon." Yeah, most of it's going to be canon, but of course, obviously, the Justice League, not so much.
Right.
And so I thought it was kind of funny, actually, starting the season off with that and saying last time on the DCU and going through and re-showing that. And so for me, it worked, I think, in part because it also kind of made light of all the drama at DC and reintroduce it to the Justice Gang and all. I liked it. It worked for me. And I think especially since this was released so quickly on the heels of Superman that, we were just like a month ago introduced to the Justice Gang. And so seeing them again right here and then including them in kind of a humorous way with the faulty speaker and stuff as Peacemakers interviewing to be a part of the Justice Gang. I thought that was funny too. I thought it worked. So for me, it worked. I thought they dealt with it in a way that was kind of funny, and I liked it. What did you think?
I agree. As soon as it said previously in the DCU, I just started giggling. I was like, wait a minute. What do you mean previously in the DCU? That's not a thing. And I immediately went, oh, okay. I think I know what's coming here. And I'm with you. There was some kind of almost humor about him just taking it head on and unapologetically just replacing them, putting in new dialogue. And I didn't think about it, but you're right. The fact that it comes so close on the heels of being introduced to the Justice Gang also made it feel familiar and made it feel like you were ready for it. And so, yeah, I think it was fine. It was fine. It was fine. It was sure. It was just fine. It was fine. Everything's fine.
For me, it was like that was like the very beginning. I started laughing as soon as I saw that, and I
Yeah.
thought, oh yeah, I really like Peacemaker because I haven't watched it since it came out, and I'm
Yeah.
like, this is funny. I forgot how funny this show
It's
is,
hysterical, isn't it?
and that's why I thought I've got to go back and I've got to rewatch it because I'd watch like a summary or whatever, a recap, and I'm like, no, I got to go back and watch it all. And I just have spent the last week like just cracking up going through these old episodes of Peacemaker.
I love it. I love it. Well, listen, I mentioned that maybe Peacemaker is going to be getting some kind of redemption story here.
Yeah.
But then at the same time, part of what is endearing about him is that he is so bumbling and that his past does create so many problems in his life. And so I'm not sure that it's a good thing to have him have a redemption arc. So I guess my question is, do you think we really are going to get a redemption arc? Or is this sort of like a creatively choreographed, continued self-destruction thing?
Look, when James Gunn was talking about this, he said, Peacemaker's just an asshole. And he said, but in the second season, he's not as big
As
of an
much.
asshole. And so I think that's the redemption arc that he's going to go through is
Yeah.
that he finds some pieces about his humanity, but he's still the same old asshole that we've always known and loved and has seen problems with. And I think that that's something we saw throughout the first season too. Whenever they're like, look, you're trying to be a good guy, and we like that about you. And we heard all the other characters like reflect that, like you're an asshole, but you're kind of a good guy. And I would say that's the redemption arc that we're gonna see is him continuing to be the lovable asshole we've always known.
Which isn't a redemption.
It's not a redemption,
but it's also not what I could describe as a creatively choreographed continued self-destruction. It's just maintaining his assholery while still being a somewhat big-hearted person.
Yeah,
You can be an asshole and still have a good heart. I mean,
that's true.
I got people I see weekly that are those people. So I know that it can happen.
I love it. I think that's it. That's how we're gonna see it. Because we don't want him to change too much, or else he's not Peacemaker.
Exactly. I
He's not
completely
much
agree.
fun to watch.
We could geek out more about this. There's a lot more to laugh at, but we really should move on, as promised, into our theology and politics that the show brings up. So let's have a few more sips of our cocktails and come back on the other side and talk.
Welcome back to the Moonshine Jesus Show. We're moving into our Theopolitico segment where we will talk about theology and politics of Peacemaker. So, Mark, Peacemaker wrestles with what it means to love his country without repeating his father's toxic nationalism and his KKK neo-Nazi stuff. How can Christians distinguish healthy civic pride from idolatrous nationalism, particularly in these times?
I don't mean to oversimplify this, but that's what I do. Look, all you have to do is boil the teachings of Jesus down into something that's understandable. Wait a minute. No, you don't have to do that. Jesus did it for you. Love your neighbor and love your God as yourself. There you go. So if it's not loving, if it doesn't, and your neighbor is not the person who lives next door to you, it's anyone who is in need. He showed us that through the story of the Good Samaritan. So if what you're doing is not loving towards those who are marginalized, then it is coming from the wrong place. It's coming from your sense of nationalism and not from your sense of following the teachings of Jesus. And here's the other piece of that. You're not the one that gets to say if what you're doing is loving. The people
Hmm.
you're doing it to get to say it.
Hmm.
I don't mean to oversimplify all of this and boil it down, but that for me, that's where we sit with this. And it's pretty straightforward. It is not that confusing to figure out who's marginalized, to
Yeah.
treat them in a way that you hope is loving, and then let them tell you whether or not it actually was something that was helpful and good to them.
Hmm. Hmm.
I
I think that's a great. I love that Jesus boiled it down
yeah,
for
right,
us so
right,
much. I frequently get people who don't really understand the difference between showing some kind of pride in your country and blindly following it.
oh,
And I
absolutely,
guess that's the distinction that I would draw too is like,
yeah,
are we questioning what our country is doing? Are we willing to name the places of
yeah,
destruction that our country is engaged in? And if we're not willing to do that, if we are just blindly following, if we're not willing to criticize, then I think that that's pretty clearly nationalism.
absolutely, I
And I
agree,
think that civic pride is whenever we can say, hey, look, the ideals that we espouse as a country are great, like democracy, representation, allowing everybody a chance, freedom of speech and of religion.
mhm.
That stuff's all good and noble. I'm proud of that,
Yeah, absolutely.
and we don't live up to that. And I think
No,
like it's patriotic to say that, and I feel like people,
mhm,
especially a lot of people in churches, purple churches in particular, ought ought to be able to do that. And I feel like a
agreed.
lot of churches really struggle with that.
I
Um,
am certain that you're right. You see it all the time, and that's also that's also unfortunately not following the teachings of Jesus. When you're a church that's too scared to step on toes
yeah,
because you don't want to lose members or you don't want someone to not give to the church, rather than saying what is the correct thing to do, what's loving, because
yeah.
Jesus didn't ask those kinds of questions in terms of is this going to make someone upset, or is it, he's just said, is it right, is it wrong, and then I'm going to speak out about it. I am going to call people to task if they're being people that's hurting other people.
Wait, he didn't say, "What if so and so who gives a large portion of our church budget gets mad and leaves? Shouldn't we water down the gospel for that?" He didn't say
Right.
that. He didn't say,
Uh,
uh,
it was one of the gospel. It might have been in one of the gospels they didn't put in the Bible, and that's why they didn't put it in the Bible because they didn't want the word to get out.
the gospel according to church folks,
That's right.
to watered down, whitewashed church
Yeah,
folks.
absolutely.
So the ragtag team in Peacemaker
Mm.
forms a strange but genuine community. How does this resonate with biblical ideas of church as unexpected, messy communities of grace?
Absolutely. I think it 100% does. And it is, and many times, that kind of family, that kind of chosen family where you find yourself with people who, as you named them, ragtag, who've been through the struggle, who continue to struggle and come together anyway. It creates such an interesting dynamic within a community that you know that you're broken. And I hate the word broken, but I mean, that's just
Yeah.
church frequently uses that language. You know that you're struggling. Let's say use that word. You know that you're struggling and you know that you struggle with struggling, but you also see someone else who is doing the same thing, maybe for different reasons, and you can see God in that, and
Yeah.
you can create the community that God is more resonant in and more palpably present in when you make those types of connections. It is the some of the best family that you can ever have is chosen family in those situations, and it certainly is a reflection of the early church and who they were and who they were to each other and how they interacted and stood over and against society in a lot of ways in order to keep each other okay and healthy. I think it's a great comparison that you are suggesting there.
Yeah, I really like the idea of misfits coming together because I frequently think one of the things that continues to be important about religious community for me is the fact that it's one of the only places still in our society that gathers people intergenerationally. Although, let's be
Mhm.
honest, a lot of churches
So,
maybe are
so
lacking some younger demographics. Or
yeah, my
but I
church.
mean,
I'm one of the young
theoretically.
people. I'm one of the young people in my church.
That's right. But theoretically, I like that. I like that if churches also able to gather people from across racial and ethnic and socioeconomic lines, that it's one of
Absolutely.
the only places that's able to happen. Again, I don't think churches always do a great job of that,
Agreed.
but at least in a lot in churches I've been a part of, it's been places where I look around on a Sunday morning, and one of the privileges of standing at the communion table or the pulpit or wherever and looking out at the congregation and being like, this group of people has no business being together. Like if it weren't for this community, these people
Right.
would never even know each other.
Yeah.
And I think it's beautiful to see that and to try to get together and work together on making the world a better place. That gives me hope for the future. And
Absolutely.
sometimes whenever that doesn't happen, it frustrates me to no end. But I love it that people are
Yeah, I hear
willing to
that.
try. What people are willing to try. So one of my favorite moments in the first episode of season 2 is when Harcourt is diagnosed with toxic masculinity.
That was brilliant. I laughed so hard when he gave her the diagnosis. I
I
was like,
was
I was like, yeah, okay.
I was walking on the treadmill because I can't just sit still and watch
Yeah.
a show or whatever, and I almost fell off the off the treadmill laughing about that.
I have no
Um,
doubt.
so toxic masculinity is obviously one of the huge issues in society. How do we go about addressing toxic masculinity, both personally and at a larger systemic level?
Yeah. We have to start setting better examples of what masculinity is. That's a lot of this has stemmed from our last generation, that a lot of us grew up in hearing, boys don't cry, and all of the toughen up and pull yourself up by the all of that. One, we have to start showing other versions of what masculinity can look like. But most importantly, and part of how we get to that and have more people who are willing to do it, is we have to start teaching it out of our society. It is there is a very intentional effort being made to do this. You have to do it yourself. You've got to be strong, and everything that's not hardcore and mean and aggressive is too feminine for a guy to be or to have or to. And this idea that men can only be like men and women can only be like women is the most insane thing that I've ever heard.
Yeah.
People should be who they are. And sometimes that's what the world would define as masculine. And sometimes it's what the world would define as feminine. I am really exceptional at picking out shoes and handbags. And I love doing it. We've got to stop mixing what is okay and what isn't, and just say who people are is what really matters. And let's encourage that, because we get a better world and we get stronger, happier people when we do that kind of thing.
Yeah, that's a great point. And I think whenever we see in media, in our modern myths, we see men portrayed as being able to do things other than, I don't know, than shoot guns and ride horses or drive fast cars or whatever it is
Right.
that men are supposed to do,
Yeah,
which has never really made sense to me. I
I
guess
agree.
it's just never made any sense, any of that.
Yeah.
That whenever we see that portrayed in more public spaces, I think that helps. I also think that churches have played a pretty significant role in some of this too, in
Oh,
like
absolutely.
portraying Jesus as like the masculine stuff. Those pictures you see of the white Jesus with muscles
Okay.
and the American flag and all of that, I think is weird and blasphemous
Yeah.
and all of that stuff. But I also think like one thing that also never made any sense to me is this old model of churches that divides people into genders, and of course there are only
Yeah.
two options, men
Right.
and women, and you're
And
either
they
going to
have
go
really specific roles.
Oh
that they
yeah,
tr-
really
that they
specific
tr-
rules.
that they tried to make biblical, even though it's not what the Bible actually says. You can read it
Yes.
in there, but you can read anything into it if you want to.
Yeah.
And then they work so hard over time to minimize and kick out women out of the story. They even changed some names in the Bible so that the strong woman might seem more like it could be a strong man. I mean, oh my God! And
Isn't that ridiculous?
and what they did to Mary Magdalene is a whole nother story of toxic masculinity, really.
Yes, making her into a prostitute because a
Yeah.
pope isn't good at biblical scholarship. I mean, I
Exactly.
think because a man can't read the Bible. So,
Uh-huh.
but you know, those groups also they always have defined like discussion topics and defined roles and things like
Mhm.
you're women,
The
women's
women's
group.
study Bible, the men's study Bible, and
Yeah,
they're
and you're gonna be
very
like knitting,
gender
or you're gonna,
specific.
yeah, it's weird. It's really
Yeah,
weird. And so
it's very
churches that
odd.
get over that would be great. Okay, one more question I want to ask.
Yeah.
So this is something that you alluded to earlier. Peacemaker has killed his brother,
Mhm.
and he's killed his dad, and
Yeah.
he's killed
Killed
another
himself.
version of himself.
Himself.
That's
Yeah.
right. So everyone kind of like in his immediate family he has killed. And we kind of see this a cycle of violence here. I'm wondering just briefly, like, are there any steps that we can go through to overcome the cycles of violence that we see in our society, because we continue to see, you know, violence perpetuating violence, and we see countries perpetuating violence over and over again. Just in brief, is
Yeah.
there one quick tip you have on how we can
Uh,
stop perpetuating violence?
yeah, I mean, it's a very complicated question. Like I sometimes say, people write books on this. One
Yeah,
of the
but I
things we
just
have
want a
to
quick tip, Mark. Just a
one
quick
of the
tip,
things
you
we
know?
have to do is stop the line of thinking that violence solves problems. Because when we think that we can create peace by violence, when we think a problem can be solved by violence, all we're really learning is that violence works. So we're just going to keep repeating it. So we've got to shift gears, and we've got to call attention to the times where a problem is solved without violence, without resorting to it. That's one of the ways that we can start doing it, because it is the core of the problem, is that no matter what we're trying to create, if we do it with violence, the only thing we're really teaching is that it looks like violence works, and it doesn't in the long run, but in the short run it can seem like it.
Yeah. I guess at a country level, if we're able to pass legislation that stops us from benefiting financially from
Yeah,
violence, then that goes a long way towards stopping
absolutely.
the war machine. And so I would love to see some politicians who actually care about that.
Wouldn't that be
Hey,
great?
hey, look, we've only had one episode, but there's quite a bit to talk about in
Amazing, right?
Peacemaker. And I would love to chat more about theology and politics. But if I do, we won't get to our favorite segment, the Make
Can't
Me
do
Look Stupid segment. And yeah, we cannot have that. So why don't we take a break, take a drink, and come back and try to make each other look stupid?
Welcome back, and thank you for joining us for our Make Me Look Stupid segment, where we proceed to try to make our co-host look stupid, either by asking a question that maybe stumps them, or admitting that maybe we feel stupid and can't answer a question and look for a little help, or by asking them to make a prediction so that we can talk about how stupid they are later on. I've got 3 questions here. I've been going back and forth about which one I want the answer to. I think this is the one, because it also kind of almost, I'm just going to ask the question.
Okay.
What's the deal with this pocket dimension thing?
Uh-huh.
And how many universes are we at? I mean, think of all the doors that were in there.
Yeah.
How many universes are we talking about? How many are we likely to see? And has Gunn made the mistake that I think Marvel kind of feels like they made when they opened up the multi-universe, where there's just too many multi-universes and almost anything could happen, and someone's death really doesn't matter because we can just bring in a Spider-Man from the other universe. What do you think about it? How big is it? How much are we going to see? And is it a mistake?
Well, in this particular Pocket Universe, I think they said there were 99 doors. So I think we've got 99 different dimensions, universes here. So we've got it limited. It's not an infinite number in the same way that we have in Marvel, which I think gives us grounds to explore some. Uh, I think it can be kind of fun. I think it's a good way to transition from the DCEU to the DCU.
Mm,
And so I'm still on board with the multiverse concept, although I've got to admit, before the DCU, I was kind of tired of it. I'm like, okay, we've done this,
right.
and I'm kind of done with this. But I like the fact that this will allow, in some way, like like the Elseworld stuff to exist if we're still planning to do that. It seems a little bit unclear to me because there's also been talk about like integrating existing stuff that was going to be
Yeah.
Elseworlds like Batman and
Batman.
Penguin and stuff, yeah, into this. So I don't know, but I think that I think it will play a role, but maybe we'll see kind of like the Crisis on Infinite Earth stuff where it all gets merged together into a single universe. And so maybe
Yeah.
this is the way that all of that happens, that it brings it together and we can move forward with the DCU. I
Mm,
think a place where it's happened where they did a good job with this was in the Arrowverse. I thought the Crisis on Infinite Earth stuff and Arrowverse was really, really
I
good.
agree. Yeah,
And
I
I mean,
enjoyed it a lot. Well, matter
that
of
was
fact, we
like,
didn't get enough of it as far as I was concerned.
yeah, I mean, that was really and it kind of went downhill after that,
After that, yeah.
but like that was
So
kind of the
maybe it was actually a
culmination.
mistake. Maybe we're wishing for something that we don't really want to wish for.
I think that in that case, it was just there was too much and it had gone on for too long
Yeah,
for
probably true.
what CW could really sustain. I think,
Yeah,
but at James Gunn in James Gunn's hands,
yeah.
I think it could work. So, long story short, I'm okay with it. I want to see where it goes. I don't think it's infinite. It looks like there's about 99 right now, and I think it could be fun to explore. And I think we'll see some exploration through the course of the season. What about you? What do you think?
Actually, well, I was a little worried about it, frankly.
Yeah.
If they figure out a way, I don't want 99. I
Yeah.
don't even want half of that. If they figure out a way to limit it, like
Yeah.
and in Peacemaker, you can make it stupid, like,
Yeah.
oh, those universes, we don't know the combo to the door. We don't know. We'll never get in there. Like they could do something.
That's
stupid
true.
like that.
That's consistent.
And very much limited. I'd be fine with that. Like
Yeah.
if we are only dealing with 3 or 4, I'd be okay with it.
Yeah.
And I want them to do something new with the
Yeah.
parallel universes. I'm kind of tired of it being a what if. It's really similar, but not quite the same. I mean, we've
Yeah.
seen that played out far too many times.
Yeah.
And the what ifs that get played out. Well, what if Uncle Ben didn't die? I mean, we've done that. So
Yes.
my answer is if they do it, I'd like for it to be very few and it to be starkly different in some way and not just sort of different.
Yeah.
Change it up enough that it's interesting again.
I
All
hear
right.
that. I hear that.
I've
I'm
had
okay
my
with that.
chance to try to stump you. I think you actually did a fabulous job answering the question. So your turn.
Thank you.
Fire away, sir, as Peacemaker would say.
So, in that little pocket multi-dimensional universe
Mhm.
thing, one of the first people things that we see a Peacemaker interact with is an alien type thing from another
Yeah.
universe. What do you think that is? And do you think that will play any kind of role in this season?
I think that he wants us to feel like it's a throwaway character.
Yeah.
Because he is in the dance scene, I think he is not a throwaway character. I think it will be played for comedy.
Yeah.
And that thing will only come out of his door throw something into the trash can incinerator, and then go back into his door and not talk to Peacemaker at all. And then on the last episode, something's going to be revealed where that guy is really just a great guy and does something very important to help Peacemaker on the journey, whatever journey it turns out he's on, help him along the way. That's where I think we got to be going with him. It was funny though. I liked. It was pretty funny, and to hear Peacemaker talking about that asshole, quote that asshole. Yeah, I liked it. It was fun. What do you think?
The irony of him calling someone an asshole. So I think he's going to be important. I think it was interesting that in the last season we got alien butterflies. I think it's possible that this race or a dimensional being or whatever could be someone who could perhaps be an antagonist in the season. And I've been reading some theories about people who are looking at different multidimensional beings in DC or whatever. But one I thought was interesting is that there's kind of like the precursor to Darkseid, and I think it would be interesting if we got an actual Darkseid, not like the kind we saw in Justice League with Zack Snyder stuff, but if we saw, I think one thing that Marvel really did well for about a decade before they ended their Infinity Saga is that Thanos was the big bad, and I think having a big bad is significant. And so I think it might be interesting if we get introduced to DC's big bad somehow in Peacemaker. I'm not sure that he'll do the actual introduction in Peacemaker because even if he were to go that route,
not going to be as well watched, and it won't be as well that in a larger context.
And I think he's smart. I think he's really smart. I think he would do something like that in a movie, But I just think it would be interesting if that plays in somehow to like a big bad that we see in the DCU. I'd like to see that.
I like that take. We will see what happens and how it all plays out. So this is the point where we used to say what we're going to be watching for next week. This time we have decided, since we're going to Wild Goose Festival, there's going to be so many people there. Some people will come and join the show who don't know the show, who haven't been listening. And so it's always good to have something to talk about that has a chance that they've actually watched it anyway. So we made the choice, since Peacemaker just came out, to go back and revisit Superman, which is now available on television. You can rent it, buy it there. Buying, I'm going to put in air quotes, because you don't buy anything electronic if whoever is selling it to you loses the rights to it, you lose the rights to it as well. But it's a good timing for it. It'll be a great one to talk about. We had so much more that we could have talked about while we were there. So we want to invite people to definitely come and catch us at Wild Goose if you're there at the Goosecast stage, 5 o'clock on Friday. The first handful of people who show up will be receiving one of these, as I'm holding it up to the camera, Moonshine Jesus Show jugs with the logo on it, and there will be an adult beverage in there themed around Superman in some way. And if you don't manage to get there early enough to get one of those, don't worry, we still have you covered. We'll have all kinds of beverages, including non-alcoholic beverages, and some Moonshine Jesus Huggies to hand out to you, some stickers, that kind of thing, and a lot of fun and good conversation. It's one of our favorite times, right, Caleb?
Absolutely. I love going to Wild Goose, and I love any time that we can do this in person and that we can drink together and geek out together. I mean, there's not much better than that. So
it makes for a really good day. I'm with you. All right. So we really hope that we'll see you at the Wild Goose Festival. If not, just make sure that you keep following us everywhere that you are watching or listening to us, because we appreciate the ability to do this, because it is you that allows us to do this. Although I say that, but even if no one watched, I think we might do this anyway. I don't know.
It's cathartic. It's good. It's good practice. We get to watch all this stuff, Mark. We get to drink. I mean,
it's a good time. Exactly.
Yeah.
But at any rate, all of you out there, we really appreciate you. Thank you. And we will see you, if not at the Wild Goose Festival, we'll see you the next time on the Moonshine Jesus Show.
Moonshine Jesus.